Welcome back to another episode of the King's Pulse podcast presented by the King's Herald. My name is Brendan Nunez. And today, as always, we got Chris Watkins of Sacktown Sports 1140, Return of the Roar podcast, Kings Weekly, and a whole lot of other Kings stuff. What's going on, Chris? How you doing, man?
I'm doing good, man. It's the holiday season. You know, we're a couple days away from Christmas, so I think I'm ready to. I feel like I'm already in vacation mode. Like a lot of people, you don't have to go into any office for work, but like at the station, it's a ghost town, and it's been a ghost town for like the past 2 weeks as I'm recording from home. But it's just like I'm so ready to get in that holiday mood, you know, like you were just telling me you still have to buy your Christmas gifts and stuff. Like that's what the season's all about. You know, that's when you really get into the Christmas spirit. It's almost better to do it right before. So that way it's like, you know, you're kind of like you get a 4-day Christmas window instead of like a month of, you know, just like watered down Christmas. So
Right.
I'm ready for
I'm a
the
clutch
holidays.
performer, man. I'm a
Right.
clutch
That's all it
performer,
is.
you know?
Going for that clutch player of the year.
Right.
Jerry West,
Which
clutch player of the year.
Jerry West is fine. It's the George Mikan most improved where I'm like, what is this? Like that's the
Right,
one where I
yeah.
was like, are we really?
It's
Like,
just a little bit like, yeah, why George Mikan? Like, I understand that they have the Mikan drill, which is like, I think that's like a rebounding drill, if I'm not mistaken. But like, it feels like you should just name it. I think I was listening to Zach Lowe's
yeah,
podcast, and he was talking about it, and he had the right point of like, this is just a placeholder because this will be the Giannis Antetokounmpo most improved player of the
as
year
it
in
should.
15 years or in 20
As it
years or
should.
whatever the hell.
Yes, totally agree with you. We are just coming off a game where we saw another player that will eventually have a award named
Right.
after himself.
Right.
And LeBron James came into town right after the Kings had lost honestly, their worst loss of the year. I feel like that's safe to say. I don't think I'm forgetting anything. There were some bad losses earlier, but they were against good teams. Charlotte came in as the worst team in the league. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Against Charlotte, they lost 125, 119. They kind of look like they just maybe not overlooked the team, but thought it would be an easier night.
Mhm.
And there were just so many layups they gave up to Charlotte. I don't want to spend too much time diving into both of these games because we're going to focus on the all-star candidacy of De'Aaron Fox and Domantas Sabonis throughout the course of this episode primarily. But I thought that Charlotte game was really disappointing. But the most important thing after that, like you could have a disappointing game every once in a while. Most important thing after that is you don't have two in a row. And they came out against the Lakers, who also have been bad this year. No Anthony Davis, no Russell Westbrook, no Austin Reeves. They put up 134 on them, you know, and the Lakers have their offensive issues, but they were an all right defensive team. And again, no Anthony Davis makes a big difference there, but they put up 134. What were some of your things that stood out to you the most throughout that Lakers game? And even if you want to take it back to the Charlotte game at all.
Yeah, I mean, I'm trying to block that Hornets game out of my memory as much as possible and just not talk about it. Not because, you know, you're not supposed to talk about the bad and we're just being negligent, but just like you said, like it just felt like they came out that game and were expecting to win and thought that, you know, they can kind of fall back on, you know, I think a lot of times, especially with like, you find this with like legit, you know, Warriors, your Celtics maybe this year, where it's like you can fall back on your culture or like what you have established as like just kind of going through the motions, and you think that, you know, you're good enough team that even if you stumble, you can just, you know, fight through it through a 48-minute game. And it just felt like they were expecting at some point to kind of what's the term that people flip the switch is this term that people always use for like really dominant teams, especially when it comes towards playoff time. And I thought the Kings thought at some point that they could let the Hornets hang with them and then they'd flip the switch and the game would be over. What ended up happening is LaMelo Ball flipped the switch and went absolutely postal in that fourth quarter. It really just made it not impossible, but when LaMelo's playing like how he did in that fourth quarter, like that was some ridiculous shit. Like that's some budding superstar type shit. And I'm not huge on, you know, LaMelo Ball being a future superstar, maybe a potential all-star, multiple time all-star in the future. But you know, I think with that fourth quarter performance, that kind of just killed the Kings any chance of that the Kings had of coming back in that game. In terms of the Laker game, what really stuck out was, the obvious would be Harrison Barnes. Had a really good scoring night for the Kings, and for most of the night led the team in scoring, and was also defending LeBron James on the other end. I thought he did a really good job at just making it difficult for LeBron. You're not going to stop LeBron by any stretch of the imagination, but with no AD, no Russ last night, you knew LeBron was going to come in looking to get his. And he did. He got 31 points, but for him to finish on 21 from the field, like, Harrison stuck out to me. He started to put some good games together. Obviously, Keegan Murray has came out and really started to look a lot more comfortable. Kevin Huerter, I mean, for him to find his way out of his struggles last night, really good shit. And the guy that we're going to talk about, Domantas Sabonis, has just been on an absolute another planet right now. Like, just his dominating fashion against, honestly, the thing that's not being talked about, and the Lakers and Hornets aren't great examples of it, but he's been doing just dominating against some of the most elite competition in the league. And it's just a nightly basis. Like, you can really, how many people can you realistically stay? Like, I expect him to get at least 15 points, 12 rebounds, and 7 assists on a given night. Like, that's reserved for your Jokic's, your Giannis's, your Lukas of the world. And we somehow apparently have one of those guys in Domantas Sabonis. So, like, those are really the major things that stick out, but specifically Sabonis, and also De'Aaron Fox, who we're also going to talk about. Like, De'Aaron has come back from his injury and is finally starting to look more like the guy that we saw in the beginning of the year.
For sure. Last night was as good as it gets,
Yeah. That feels like a peak game, right? Like, all you could have maybe asked more for is like a more explosive offensive, scoring night from Malik. But Mike Brown was incredibly quick to make note of the fact that, Malik was only 1 of 3 from the field, only had 2 points last night, still managed to get 6 assists. So, and that's something that Mike talked about with, I believe, Keegan, or it was either Keegan or HB earlier in the season, where it's like, you're not getting his points, but where else are you affecting the game? How else can you make an impact on the game? Right. And you see that with Kevin Huerter, who hasn't been hitting shots. He's not just focused on scoring threes, though. You're seeing him penetrate, hit that nice little fall away that he's got inside the paint. He's managed to stay effective without hitting shots. Malik last night, still remaining to be an elite playmaker coming off the bench, and not letting his scoring dictate how he's going to play. And the more and more guys that you can get on your team that are affecting the game in other ways besides scoring, like, that's just going to make this team even better as this season goes on.
Absolutely. I got a box score in front of me here. I'm just now realizing that Keegan shot 12 threes. Which,
did he really?
He
did not realize that either.
And he made half of them.
Right.
So good on him.
Wow.
But obviously he had a great night. I just didn't realize quite the extent of the volume. But 23 points for the rookie, 20 points for HB, 26 for Huerter, 22 and 6 for De'Aaron, who ended up getting ejected. And the only guy that started that did not get 20 points or more was Domantas Sabonis, who ends the game with 13 points, 21 rebounds, and 12 assists. This man is insane. I think everybody that we talked to in post-game yesterday was like, I think I looked up at the end of the first quarter and he had 10 rebounds, and like, how the hell? And that's like the story of Domas, man. Like, his numbers shock me when I look up at the scoreboard, but at the same time, like, I almost don't feel like they do him enough justice. Like, right. He's so ridiculously good. He makes everybody better. But like we talked about a little bit on yours and Frank's pod's Return of the Roar earlier today, like, Domas is making everybody else better, but I think everybody is helping highlight Domas' skill set. And I don't think he's had this before. There was like Oladipo at one point during his time in Indiana, and those were the years that Domas was an all-star and Depot was an all-star. And then there's Brogdon, but who was there aside from Brogdon? And Brogdon is one of those guys. But if you only have one, like, it's just not the same as having the 5 or 6 that the Kings have of smart players that are also capable at spacing the floor. And the more and more Keegan can become that guy, the better that this team is going to be. And Keegan played great last night. He drew 2 charges, which is something that I think was a big focal point in his growth throughout the course of this season. And just as he continues to develop as an NBA player and get used to the speed of the game, I think that specifically, and then finishing at the rim. We heard Mike say, like, don't give cats in this league respect they don't deserve. Go up and try to dunk it on someone. He tried to dunk it on someone for the first time yesterday.
Yeah.
And it caught me super off guard. At some point, I swear Keegan will just be trying to dunk on people. Like, and I'm not saying, I guess I shouldn't say on people, but around people. You know what I mean? Like, Keegan is not going to cock it back and throw it down. He's just going to kind of drop it in. But he needs to do that instead of this double clutching weird layup stuff. And I think we're going to eventually get there. But Keegan did win Defensive Player of the Game. And Coach talked about it a little bit. We got Keegan first in post game, or maybe we got Herter first, and then we got Keegan.
First, yeah.
And then Coach came out and said that Keegan won Defensive Player of the Game. And it was like, well, it's pretty funny that Keegan was just out here and he didn't mention that to us at all, which makes sense. But then Jason Anderson made a little comment and Coach Brown had a fun interaction there. So the audio side, everybody will hear it. We're also on YouTube. That I think the visual of the clip adds to it a lot. So if you happen to be on YouTube, then check it out there. But the audio does it justice as well. So here is Coach Brown on Keegan, Defensive Player of the Game.
Nice to Jason.
Mike Keegan didn't tell us he was DPOG. Maybe next time you send him in here with the chain on.
Yeah, I think from what I heard, this is rumor mill now, and I don't usually get in the rumor mill, but I'm gonna get into it tonight because we won. I heard he broke it. Hey, okay, yeah. So it's gonna eat into his lottery money a little bit if he did. And then the second thing, I don't know if he wanted to bring it up because, when we handed it out to I think it's been Domantas and it's been HB, they've had a lot of swag when they put it on, and literally they put the chain on Keegan, and Keegan just stood here like this. And so they were like, have some swag, do something. And so Keegan was like, come on over. Then he just stood there. So he might not wanted to bring it up because if you ask his teammates about his swag after it went across his neck, he might get killed a little bit.
Swag. We'll have to.
The come on over is the best part of that, especially if you look at the picture afterwards, right? That got posted from the Kings. That was a great moment. And personally, I'm shocked. I thought Keegan had a lot of swag,
No comment. Absolutely no comment at all. Keegan continues to just be my favorite player on the team, just in terms of like an unintentional comedy stance. Like,
yes.
Nice to Jason.
Total accident.
You're good. No, Mike Brown is like intentionally hilarious. Like he's trying to make us laugh and get a reaction out of us. Keegan can literally say, and like, you and I meme his burger thing all the time. Like the other day at practice, he was like, we were like, what if Keegan just like talks in like, instead of money figures, just like an amount of burgers, like, oh, like that, that Chick-fil-A that they make me buy costs 25 McDoubles or something, or, whatever, shit like that.
The lie that you had, was like, yeah, bro, I'm not like, I got dinner tonight. I'm making 40K burgers a year. Like, I should have said it in that voice. We definitely have a voice. Not that we mock Keegan. We just, the same way that all his
imitation is
are messing with him. Yeah. Coach is messing with him. Keegan has messed with him publicly. Like, or I'm sorry, Malik has messed with him. De'Aaron's messed with him. Like, the guys are clearly messing with him. And we're doing it the same way. It's nothing beyond that. Keegan's
so if you'll remember now, this is the second Kings player that we have been told has no swag. There was Keegan last night by Mike Brown. Let's see if you remember this. In an episode of The Run, Kevin Herter says
Davion,
which was.
But I disagree because
absolutely.
Because Davion will have some sick graphic tees. I will say, his shoes are always great. He's got cool shorts. Like I mess with how Davion dresses, but Davion dresses like he could work out in his clothes at the same time.
Right. It's
a little bit of both, right? Which is fine.
Yeah, I think I definitely think Davion has swag. I think his lack of swag is more just like he's like that cool guy that is never like trying to be extra or just like he's
Yeah.
just super basic. He's not going to smile for a picture. He's not going to throw
I
up any
feel it.
peace signs or anything.
I definitely feel it. The one other thing that I want to highlight here is LeBron had a comment yesterday on the Kings. And I will say there was a lot of media in that small visiting room.
Right.
And the weirdest thing about seeing LeBron is less LeBron himself and more of the crowd that forms wherever this dude was. So I was there courtside, and Hunter Patterson of The Athletic was sitting next to me, and he was like, oh, Bron's coming over. Right. And I was like, okay, like I didn't know that I wasn't sure if he was going to warm up. Right. And so then he comes over, and you just like can see that like everybody realized this was about to happen at the same time. And everybody gets up and is on the baseline. I called you and was like, hey, Bron just came out here, because we didn't think he was going to at that point. Right. And you and Frank showed up. But at the same time you and Frank are showing up, everybody else is doing the same thing that you two were doing. Like everybody just showed up. Right. And the next thing I know, like this is the most packed baseline I've ever seen in my life. And it's just this guy with headphones in, like doing basic warm-up stuff. Like his warm-up wasn't anything special.
No, it's not Steph Curry taking half-court shots or whatever. Steph makes a show.
It's just that it's Bron, and there's a whole crowd screaming at him. Like, but it was the same way in media, right? Like after we got out of Sacramento media, I was gonna go walk over. I think we both did, to the Lakers media side, and we just got really lucky with timing. We saw a bunch of people walking in there. I was like, "What's up?" And I think it was Chris Biederman that was like, oh, Bron's about to come over. I was like, okay, for sure. We're going to go in that room. And it's just a super packed room. And I think there were a handful of Sacramento media people that were hoping to ask a question, but didn't get an opportunity to. It was a pretty quick presser. Guy that did ask a question, putting on for Kings media, was Kenny, who was part of the Kings social team. Shout out Kenny. And I think Mark was the one recording.
Yes.
And
Mark got the footage.
Yes. And that we'll play in a second here. And I will say, Kenny said that Jonathan Bradley, who has done the one-on-ones on the Kings YouTube with Mike Brown. I think he's done it with Jordy. He's done it with Malik and a handful of different people.
Yeah, he
was the one that wrote up the question. And then Kenny just kind of recited it. But shout out to those two guys. Kenny was feeling himself when we got out of the room, because he just asked Bron a question.
He did that.
And it was one of my favorite parts of the night. But LeBron had a lot of nice things to say about Fox and Sabonis. So shout out Kenny for this question, Jonathan for writing it, and a Mark for getting this footage. But here's LeBron on just how good Fox and Sabonis have been and the importance of the surrounding pieces.
I think De'Aaron and Domantas, they complement each other very well. I think what Sabonis' ability to be able to play at the elbow like his father used to do, his ability to pass, his ability to rebound and score, makes him very dynamic. And De'Aaron's speed, first of all, it gives him a lot of space, because you don't want to step up, because he will fly right by you. But his ability to make mid-range shots, and also he's added a little post up to his game where he can shoot over guys that's smaller than him, elevating, makes him dynamic too. So, and then they just have guys around him that complements him. It's a lot of gaming within the game. And when you have space, like they have, and Herder and obviously the Rook shooting the ball extremely well, you have Harrison Barnes out there that can spread the floor. It allows De'Aaron to get into the paint. It allows him to have space. It allows Domantas to have space when you have guys out there that can spread the floor.
One of our overtime segments was about capping. Right?
Yeah.
How much do you think LeBron actually watched Domas's dad?
Because
he was like, he does it just like his dad used to. Probably a lot. Like LeBron, absolutely student of the game, right? But
that's
like,
the thing.
To what extent?
Has he seen Arvydas play? Sure, more than likely. Has he seen highlights? For sure. Has he studied his game? Incredibly doubtful. Arvydas played like 2 to 3 years in the NBA. He was like 36, I think, when he came over to the NBA. He was very much washed. I shouldn't say wash because he actually was semi-productive in
You
the
got to be
NBA.
careful
But
with that word over here, my
right,
guy.
exactly. But I mean, he was an absolute monster for a majority of his time playing in Europe. So I don't think LeBron watched a lot of, Arvydas Sabonis European highlights. But, I also don't think it takes a genius to say, like, yeah, he used to play at the elbow and he was a good passer,
Right.
like his dad.
No, and I'm just messing around here. Like Braun, obviously, I thought everything that Braun said was just great to hear. I mean, to hear a guy like that be complimentary of those guys. And of course, when I post the clips, I realized real quickly that the main takeaway from most people's point of view was going to be, oh my God, this guy just wants spacing on the Lakers so bad. Like, did you hear the way he talked about spacing for the Kings? And I'm like, okay, I don't know about that, but also see where they're coming from, I guess. But I think there is a lot of importance in that. Like, those two guys are super dynamic. They complement each other well. Fox and Sabonis, and new clutch client De'Aaron Fox, which I feel like is worth mentioning with LeBron. But all the spacing around them that unlocks their game and allows them to play so well. And I think that brings us into the primary conversation we want to have today, is just kind of checking in on these All-Stars. The voting just started on the 20th. I should have pulled the clip from practice the other day where coach is talking about Fox and Domas. Everybody should go vote for them. He's talking about how it was Foxy's birthday, and it was also Sean's birthday at the time. And there was a fun clip there, so I'm sure people have seen it. Check out Sean Cunningham's Twitter, Instagram. There was a great clip there. But Western Conference All-Stars, general league-wide All-Stars just opened, and Fox and Sabonis are the obvious two candidates for the Kings. So just to go through some of the specifics of how this voting works, I guess first of all, the All-Star game is going to be from the 17th to the 19th in Salt Lake City. Shout out Frank. Pretty sure Frank's going to be there. Carticelli.
Yep.
The fan voting is open from. Are you? I would love to try as well.
I don't think it's going to happen, but
I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
Fan voting goes from December 20th, open now, until January 21st. There are certain days where there's going to be each vote is worth triple the amount.
Yeah. I just had to make a graphic for this.
Yeah, I know Christmas is one, and they have like 5 or 6 other days.
It's Christmas, New Year's Day. So it's 25th, the 1st of January, January 6th as well. And I believe it's the 13th.
Okay. There's a couple others, and you will definitely know when it is the day of. I'm sure people will be loud about it. Yeah. But voting is no longer allowed on Twitter. So when you see people doing this hashtag NBA All-Star, this was a thing in years prior. This is not a thing this year because of what happened with Andrew Wiggins last year. Not saying Andrew Wiggins wasn't deserving of being an All-Star. Andrew Wiggins was not deserving of being an All-Star starter, just to be blunt. What happened is that Golden State has a big following overseas, and they decided that on one of the double or triple voting days that they wanted to use the leverage of one of their K-pop stars for him to tweet it out. And it got a super huge amount of interactions. And that number itself gave Wiggins a crazy amount of votes. So they don't want people to abuse this anymore, right?
Yeah.
But the starters, you can still vote on the NBA app and website. And it's 2 backcourt players and 3 frontcourt players, right? So the starters voting works. 50% of it is fan votes, 25% of it is player votes, and the other 25% is selected media votes. So fan votes still matter a lot here. They're going to be half of what is accounted for here. But again, any hashtag NBA All-Star on Twitter is not accounting for a vote like it previously did. Mm-hmm. And then the All-Star reserves are voted on by the head coaches. And we were talking to some people about this yesterday. They'll have conversations with the rest of their coaching staff or anything. It's not like Mike Brown is like, I don't want to hear from anybody else. I'm picking this is all conversations, right? But I think it is telling there's 30 people voting on the reserves. That's not much at all. It's obviously people very well informed. Like if I could only pick 30, these are about as good as it gets, right? But that's how the reserves are voted on. The starters will be revealed on January 26th on a TNT broadcast. The reserves will be released on February 2nd. And again, starters, 2 backcourt players, 3 frontcourt players. Reserves, also 2 backcourt players and 3 frontcourt players. And then you get 2 wild cards. be whatever the hell you want, backcourt or frontcourt. And I want to start with the frontcourt, and we're only going through the Western Conference because I don't give a damn about the Eastern Conference. Domantas Sabonis. I do care about the Eastern Conference.
Yeah.
Domantas Sabonis is obviously Sacramento's candidate for the front court here, right? And his numbers so far this year, 17.9 points, 12.4 rebounds, which is league leading in rebounds. 2.8 of those 12.4 are offensive. 6.6 assists. So again, just under 18 rebounds, 12.5 assists, 12.5 rebounds, 6.5 assists on 62% from the field, 41% from three, which I will say is low volume. I think it's just about one a game. And 73% from the free throw line. Damn good numbers, right?
Yep.
But
all-star numbers.
It is. And he's been an all-star twice, I believe. Yeah. But he's not going to be a starter. He's not getting the fan vote, right?
No.
To me, LeBron James is absolutely a starter in the all-star game, right?
Yes, 100%.
Okay. 27.1 points.
That is a lock.
Okay, so we are going to go through. I want to pick the people that you think are locks.
Okay.
And we'll start with that. And then we'll pick the likelies. And then what's the last wording I used? Possible. All right.
Okay.
And we'll see who falls into what category. But we'll start with locks as we go through here. LeBron James, lock. Could be the captain.
Probably.
Just because of fan voting.
Yeah.
That dude is getting the most votes.
Right.
27.1 points, 8.4 rebounds, 6.7 assists on 48% from the field, 30% from three, 72% from the free throw line. I think the other one that's a lock is Nikola Jokic. Back-to-back MVP.
Yeah.
24.7
Denver's
points.
currently the 1 seed.
Correct.
Currently.
Which not by a huge margin. I think they're actually tied with.
It's pretty much like a four-way tie. The Kings have 17 wins, and then just about every other Western Conference team above them has 19.
Right. Yeah. Denver and Memphis technically tied. New Orleans is 1 game below them, along with the Phoenix Suns, and then another half game below that. You got the Clippers, half game below, you got the Kings. I think that puts Jokic as a lock. 24.5 points, 11 rebounds, 9.2 assists, 61% from the field. The dude is making it. Back-to-back MVP. Yeah. That's a lock to me. Other lock I'll go with, and this is the only other one I kind of think of as a lock. There might be one other. Zion Williamson.
Mm-hmm.
New Orleans is one of the best teams in the league. They're a game out of first place in the Western Conference, 18-12. Zion is that guy. And he's also, like, when it comes to fan vote, like,
absolutely. I mean,
Zion's a fan favorite.
He's Braun 2.0.
His bounce is stupid. Yeah. 25.5 points, 7.2 rebounds, 4.5 assists, rough estimates, 60% from the field, 33% from three, 71% from the line. Okay, so I'll agree locks right there, right?
I don't know if you noticed or not, but all of those guys are front court players as well.
Right. And I'm only going through front court at first.
Oh, okay.
And then we'll go through backcourt. But agreed, LeBron, Zion, and Jokic are locks.
Agreed.
So, okay, we'll go to one more before we just claim those guys as starters.
Mm-hmm.
Is Anthony Davis a lock? 27.5 points, 12 rebounds.
And at this point, we're just talking about to make the team. Right?
Yeah. And we'll just,
Right, because, I mean, we can't have 4 locks at front.
Right, and I'm not going to say, all starters, but locks to make the team and whatever 3 end up being starters.
I would say yes for multiple reasons. The Laker-ness of it all, where he's just going to get a lot of Laker fan votes. The fact that he was absolutely incredible for the past month. I think he was averaging 40 points a game in the month of December before he went down with an injury. So, I would say yes. Depending on how long he's going to be out with this injury here, I think regardless, he should probably be a lock to make the team, make the roster.
I agree. There's a chance he's like an injury replacement or something, or maybe he just doesn't play again until the All-Star game, and then that gets him out of it. But I'm not going to count on that right now. I don't know what the hell his injury is. It's not very clear, right? He sprained his ankle midair. What?
It's something that only Anthony Davis could do. Like only a man who is made
Him and
whose
Greg
bones
Oden.
are made of glass, right?
Yeah, like there's nobody else. And maybe Andrew Bynum, like maybe this was a bowling incident and we didn't tell us. I don't know.
Oh my God, I forgot about that.
There were yeah, we were in that room with Bron yesterday, and the Laker guys are like asking him some sort of questions about injuries and how that is to deal with it. And the Laker reporter was like, we don't know how long AD is going to be out.
Mhm.
So I don't know. That's the one thing that could keep him out of this, but I'm calling it a lock.
Yeah.
And it seemed like you were comfortable doing that too. So that's 4 guys right
Yeah.
there. We're only getting to 6. I think we'll say the 6. And then we'll go to the backcourt, and then we'll deal with the wild cards from there. Right.
Yep.
So after this, obviously we have Sabonis. It gets tough. Paul George.
Yeah, I was going to say Paul George. He's missed 10 games so far for the Clippers so far this season. I don't think that's enough to disqualify him. The Clippers have been really good this year. I mean, Paul George has already given the Kings a 40-piece so far this season. We saw how bad the Clippers were without even, they didn't have Kawhi Leonard either. They were incredibly banged up the other day when the Kings played them. But, without Paul George, without Kawhi Leonard, that Clipper team is in a lot of trouble, and they've been able to figure it out. They're 19-14 on the season, only a game and a half out of first place in the West. I think Paul George is a big reason for that, a big steadying hand for them. And then, he's also got the star power behind it as well, which we can't forget. Again, I said this on the Return of the Roar pod, but we are not talking about all NBA here. We are not talking about numbers are numbers, facts are facts, wins are wins. We're talking about an all-star game where it's just factual that part of being an all-star is the second part of that. You have to be, you don't have to be a star, but being a star is incredibly beneficial in terms of being selected to an all-star game. So I don't know if I'd say Paul George is a lock, but he is absolutely.
Sabonis.
I feel like I was trying to compare him with Sabonis. It feels like they probably have an equal shot of making it. Though Sabonis number-wise absolutely deserves it more than Paul George, I just think the star power of Paul George probably gives him the nod. But Sabonis is a lot more likely to be the coach selection.
I agree, which is what it comes down to for these reserves. And I think that Domas is going to have a lot of pull and respect from these coaches.
Mm-hmm.
But Paul George there, I'm a big Brandon Ingram guy, but he has missed a lot of games.
He's missed a lot of games. Brandon Ingram is a great shout because he absolutely that fool is an all-star lock minus his games played. I don't know how many.
He's only played
15 games
he's
so
missed
far this season.
The last 11, and he's expected to miss at least another
half
week
of their games. He has missed half of the Pelicans games. But in those games, I mean, he's been incredible. 20 points per game, just under 5 assists, just over 5 rebounds, shooting 46% from 3 on the season. I mean, Brandon Ingram, again, that Pelicans team has been incredible this year. I definitely think if Brandon Ingram can come back and string together another good 15 to 20 games before the All-Star break, I would expect him to be in there pretty confidently.
If he's playing.
And it is
I
a
think
big
he's
if.
in there. I think that okay, so let's go through some of the other names because I think he's a tier below Domas and Paul George right now because of the injuries.
There's another name we haven't said. That's the one. That is another one where it's this where it might be where it gets political. We'll go through the backcourt, but there's a chance that maybe Fox gets the nod over. So, the Kings, maybe they collude. All the coaches and media collude, and they're like, we only can fit one Kings player in, and we have to pick between Domas or Fox. And maybe, the fact that they feel like, with the Jazz story this year, again, these are part narrative as well with how well the Jazz have played this year. It does kind of feel like someone on the Jazz does need to be represented in the Western Conference All-Stars just because they have been good for a reason. And that reason is mainly Lauri Markkanen, who has had a breakout year. 22 points a game, 8 rebounds, 53% from the field, 43% from 3. Those are absolutely all-star numbers. Those are possibly most improved player of the year numbers.
Yeah.
I think Markkanen's got a real good shot at making the team here as well. it also kind of feels like, yeah, he's probably got about as good of a shot as Sabonis.
I'm putting Domas above him just because I'm betting that the Jazz start to lose a few more games, as they kind of have. Like,
yeah,
I mean, they're not bad, but they were on fire at the beginning of the year, and that has slowed down. Just give him the George Mikan shout, and he doesn't need to be in the All-Star game. I think that he is a good shout here for sure, but I think that Paul George and Domantas Sabonis are the two above him. And right now we have 4 guys. So we're only going to make it a 6 right now. And then later we will come back to these wild card reserves. But Lauri Markkanen and Brandon Ingram, as of right now, are not taking either of Domas or Paul George off the board for me.
Is it maybe crazy to throw? I mean, he's not going to be above Sabonis or Paul George, but Jeremy Grant?
No, I have Jeremy Grant's name right here. He's been playing out of his mind.
Yeah.
21.8 points
from 3. Oh,
yeah.
61% true shooting. Like, oh my goodness.
And he's a really good defender.
This is not going to play into his all-star candidacy at all. Very strange to me. Jeremy Grant has 0 double-doubles this season.
Well, he doesn't rebound very well.
He doesn't, but just thought that was interesting.
Yeah. I mean, Andrew Wiggins was a starter last year, and there's an aspect of being on the Warriors when it comes to fan votes, but he's not going to be a starter this year, obviously. I don't think that coaches. I don't think so either.
I don't think he deserves it.
About Cat.
Yeah. Cat's tough too because he's going to miss a good chunk of time here. I don't think so. With how disappointing Minnesota's been, the fit with him and Gobert, I think, is a big reason for that. I just don't think he'll be.
Oh shit!
Yeah, I just don't think he'll be considered.
Yeah.
Gobert as well. Gobert's had solid numbers for Gobert. Nothing out of the ordinary. 14 and 12 for him, but just with the lack of success of that team, I think it's not a very sexy pick. There's just a lot more. There's frankly just a lot more deserving people.
Yeah. No, I definitely see that. DeAndre Ayton?
Yeah, he's got a chance for sure.
Phoenix is top of the West, right?
Yeah. A lot of people haven't been talking about Phoenix so far this year. What is Ayton's numbers? He's at 17.5 and just under 10 rebounds, shooting 62% from the field. That's near the top in the league. Yeah, it just feels like Ayton. Ayton's got that tough hill to climb where he's definitely below Sabonis. I'd probably put him below Markkanen as well, but that again, like you said, I think that record wise is probably going to play a factor. But
yeah,
I feel good about our 4.
So do I. And I'll go through other names real quick just to list off a couple that I think will be somewhat part of the conversation. I saw somebody mention, I don't actually know that I agree with this, but I saw somebody on Twitter today mention Aaron Gordon, just saying that he's the second best player on the best record in the NBA or the best team in the Western Conference right now. And there is pull to being the second best player on that team, but less pull when your first best player is maybe the best player in the league.
Right.
So I don't really think that his
value is defensive as well, which
right. And I don't think
conducive
that he's
to All-Star.
Yeah, I don't think he's that much in consideration there.
Right.
But just a shout. Klay Thompson, Draymond Green, Warrior guys are going to get shouts. I don't think so. The one that is interesting to me, he's only played 14 games this year, but is already sneaking his way into Defensive Player of the Year conversation. Could Jaren Jackson Jr. be part of this?
Yeah, I don't know if he's played enough games. He missed the first month and a half or so of the season. I haven't checked it. I mean, he has been really,
he's played
really
half
good.
of it. But if he keeps it up from here,
right. He's been pretty efficient. 16 points, 6 rebounds, 50%. I don't know if any of his numbers really stick out. Obviously, you mentioned his defensive ability. He's at 3.2 blocks per game.
Yeah, what the hell?
I just don't. Maybe if Memphis has a moment, but again, these tend to be very narrative, and Memphis is the number 2 seed in the Western Conference right now, but it hasn't really felt like they've had the same kind of I don't want to say media impact, but again, they haven't had their moment, I would say, so far this season, and maybe if that happens in between now and then. But I'm a big believer in the fact that a lot of these things are narrative.
So am I. Which the Kings have a damn good narrative going for
They
them.
do. They really, really do. Like they have a
yes.
top 5, top 3 narrative right now in the league. So they're definitely, if they keep this up, like, I mean, it's going to show itself at the end of the year as well, where I think that they could really, like, they have a really good shot at winning awards this year. And it's not like they have an outright favorite where it's like, oh, Malik Monk is head and shoulders going to be the 6th man of the year, and there's maybe somebody else for consideration. It's like, you look at an award and I can give you somebody from the Kings who realistically has a shot at winning that award. You're talking exec of the year, coach of the year, 6th man of the year, most improved player of the year. I feel like I'm missing clutch player of the year. I think De'Aaron's got a shot at that too. Like there's legitimate, you can, I'm not going to argue it, but I think NBA.com even had an MVP ladder that may or may not have featured Domantas Sabonis' name in it. So
it should not have. I'm not going to lie, but
it definitely should have.
I'm a big Domas guy. I think he's an all-star. But I am comfortable going with Davis, LeBron, Zion, and Jokic as the locks, and then the 2 likelies to settle into our 6, Domantas Sabonis and Paul George, and then we'll come back to wild cards after we go through the cards.
Yeah. With a Brandon Ingram,
right?
I don't know if I would put Brandon Ingram definitely first in the got next category. Lauri Markkanen, I think is, yeah, I would put Lauri behind Ingram, and then probably Jaren Jackson. So
yeah, I think those are the 3 for me also. For sure, Lauri been the most healthy, but if Ingram or Jaren Jackson can play a good majority of it leading up to that point, I think those 2 guys would have been all-stars, or still could be. When it comes to guards, 2 obvious ones.
Deeper. Yeah.
I think we know the starters, though.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm crazy. Steph Curry, I don't know, it needs explanation. 30 points, right. 6.8 assists, 6.6 rebounds, 50% from the field, 43% from 3, 91% from the free throw line. And second, I'm going with Luka. 32.2 points, 8.7 assists, 8.3 rebounds, 49% from the field, 34% from 3, 73% from the free throw line. He's a one-man show. Dallas has nothing else. Like they have, I don't want to be disrespectful. I like Christian Wood. I think Spencer Dinwiddie's nice. I'm a Josh Green guy, Dorian Finney-Smith, but like there's nobody anywhere close to Luka. Do you think those 2 are? I was going to say starters. I guess we could debate that real quick. They're definitely locks, but
they're definitely locks. It took me a second there because Steph is out, and that's. I'm pretty sure he'll be back by the All-Star. He's only meant to miss a month. All-Stars in mid-January or mid-February, so Steph should be back just in time for that. But when you first said it, I kind of imagined that it was going to be Ja. I feel like
really,
Steph absolutely is going to get the fan vote 100,000%. He even deserves to get any other coach's vote, media vote, player vote as well. He was the best player, I think, or maybe not overall best player, but offensively, the things he was doing to keep that Warrior team afloat was incredible. We saw him have an incredible game against the Kings as well. He's been carrying that team on his back all season, so he absolutely deserves it. But I feel like this could be like a really big transition point where it's like this is kind of Ja's position maybe in the future. Like he might have a lot. We might be looking at 8 straight years here of Ja Morant and Luka Doncic as the Western Conference starting backcourt.
Okay.
There's maybe, I think Devin Booker also definitely deserves a shout. I don't know. I would put him as a lock to make the team, but
who? Book,
yeah. I think it's tough. I think they're all deserving, but Luka absolutely. Like Luka is 100. I would bet my life savings that Luka, which is not a lot of money, that Luka Doncic will make the All-Star game. I mean, he's got the obvious the fan lore. I believe he's averaging just under a triple-double for the season. He's averaging 32 points per game, 8.7 assists, 8.3 rebounds a game. He's decent.
He is good. And to me, the Curry thing is that, like, that's the leading vote getter.
Yeah.
Like, he's probably the captain, and we could talk at the end after we go through our wild cards, like the guys right after that are the possible injury substitutes, right? And that's where like Curry could come in, right?
Right.
Because wasn't somebody supposed to be a captain recently, and then they didn't end up being that because of an injury?
No, they don't care. You can still be a captain. I believe it was Katie.
Oh, but he didn't
Katie
play.
was hurt, right? And he just didn't
That's
play.
right. That's right. And I think we'd see a similar thing with Steph. Like, it's the only guy I've ever seen have like that same Braun effect that we saw yesterday. Right. Wow. There's one you didn't mention yet.
SGA as well.
Yes, he's averaging 31.
Yeah,
31.
Yeah.
Like, I know OKC's not good. I don't.
It doesn't
really
matter.
care.
It doesn't matter. It
like,
doesn't matter.
You can't average 30 plus and not be here.
If I can revert this back to football and the Vikings, he is Justin Jefferson. Like it's one of those things where it's like if he's not on the team, they have 4 wins. Like the reason why they're being so successful is because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is willing them to wins, not on a nightly basis, but when they get their wins, it is in large part because Shai is playing so well. Like he just had a stretch of how many? This is in late November. He had a stretch of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 straight games of over 30 points per game. And he's not even a scorer. I mean, he is clearly scoring and putting up ridiculous scoring averages, but a main part of his game is not scoring. It's his length, it's his playmaking ability. Like he brings so much more than just scoring to the table. And the fact that he's averaging 31 points per game is absurd. Like I would have never guessed that he would have been able to put up those kind of numbers. So he absolutely, he has to be on this roster as well.
Okay, if we're only allowed to say 4 players for sure right now, we're making this.
Mm-hmm. All Luka we can think is Steph. 4 for sure.
Well, okay, so for now, and then I feel like it's wrong to say 5 locks when there's only 4 spots, but I don't know.
You said that there's the 2 wildcard spots as well, though, correct?
Right. But I feel like we should go back to the front court for a sec first before we lock in those wild cards. Like, so Steph and Luka for sure, right?
Yes.
Between Shai, Book, and Ja, who are you most confident in?
Book.
Okay. I'm good with that. After that, like, you kind of shook me a little bit with the Ja thing. I'm not gonna lie. Like, I think Ja is great, but
yeah, I think that also has a lot to do with the star fare as well, where it's like I know kids love Ja. I mean, I love Ja Morant too.
Yeah,
but Ja is just like he's the emotional leader of that team. This is an all-star game we're talking about. If we're talking about an all-star game, I need to see Ja Morant in it.
You're right. So maybe we just lock both of these guys, and that locks in a wild card spot.
I think that's it. And again, this points directly to how tough it's going to be for De'Aaron Fox to make this roster.
Right, because we haven't gotten to. So we have our starters and reserves locked at this point. Not locked, but our predictions. Right, Curry, Luka, Shai, Booker. One of the reserves is Ja. Or one of the wild cards is Ja. For the front court, we got Anthony Davis, LeBron James, Zion Williamson, Nikola Jokic, and then we got Sabonis and Paul George. With the main shouts after that being a Brandon Ingram, Lauri Markkanen, and
Jaren Jackson.
And Jaren Jackson. All of those guys are below the Booker, SGA, Ja, right?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So safe to do that. So keep Brandon Ingram, Lauri Markkanen, and Jaren Jackson in mind when we're trying to figure out these next ones, okay? Because there's only one more spot now, which is fucking crazy. Damian Lillard, bro.
Yes, absolutely. Like, if we're talking about the Kings' success this season and how impressive they've been, the Portland Trailblazers are damn near the same record as they have 2 more losses than the Kings. And Damian Lillard has just been, coming back from injury has been incredible. Right back up to 27 points per game, 7 assists per game, shooting his 44% from the field, 39 from 3.
And it's Dame.
Is Dame. Again,
Like-
all-star game. We're talking about an all-star game here.
Okay, so after Dame, which Dame, Brandon Ingram, Lauri Markkanen, Jaren Jackson. Dame at the top? You're a Markkanen guy, huh?
I was actually thinking Ingram, but
Okay.
just because it might be like, and I don't think this will play. This is my own bias, but like it's almost too many point guards at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Like you need,
Which
some
I will
point
say,
guards.
I have some beef with this whole system.
Right.
The whole
big time.
Two
Big
guards, three front court. Like, give me 2 guards, 2 front court, and then
Right.
one of anything.
Right.
You know, like how many teams run 3 guard sets? Like,
Why are we even doing positions?
right?
Why not
Right,
just
like,
do
well,
five
to an
five players?
extent, I somewhat get
Why?
it. Like,
Why? I mean,
Yeah.
no, I mean, let's just get the 15 best from each conference.
I mean, that's how people play basketball now, right? Like,
That's what I'm saying. It's
if you're
supposed to
putting
be
LeBron at
position.
the 5 sometimes, like yeah,
I don't know.
it's yeah.
I don't know if it changes it too much at the end of the day, but I mean it. So if we just take those parameters off for a minute, the starting lineup for the West, I would say is Steph, Luka, LeBron, Zion,
Jokic.
and Booker.
I think
Maybe Jokic, right? Jokic. I don't know why I keep forgetting about the 2-time MVP.
And then we go Booker.
So I guess that doesn't change it at all. Then, if you're
No,
saying position,
not really. So, yeah, Dame feels like a likely.
Yeah, to go back to your rankings, I feel like
It is fucking Dame, dude. Like,
it is, man. But like
It's
this
coaches.
guard pool is no joke.
so let's go through some of these others.
Yeah.
Anthony Edwards.
I think that Minnesota's just going to get shafted by the fact that the team record isn't there.
Yeah, I feel that. Anthony Simons, I think, deserves just to have his name
Deserves a
mentioned,
shout, right,
but
right.
he is below Lillard, obviously,
Right.
and below De'Aaron Fox.
Yep.
I'm kind of out of guards. I also wrote down Jalen Green and Desmond Bane
I was gonna say him 100%.
because Jalen Green's numbers are crazy.
Yep.
Actually don't have them in front of me.
I got him right here. 21.3 points, 3.6 assists, 4.2 rebounds, 41% from the field, nothing special. 31% from 3, nothing special. But if you watch him on a given night, there's a lot special about him, and it could just kind of be a an honorary kind of thing. But unfortunately, with how deep the guard pool is, I just don't think he's gonna deserve it.
That's where I'm at too. Eventual all-star, but not yet. Desmond Bane is missing time.
Yes, that's the only reason why, because Desmond Bane is another great shout to make the all-star team.
Yeah, 3 to 4 weeks. So that's a tough one. But so we got 1, 2, Steph, Luka, Shea, Booker, Morant, and Lillard.
And then you throw Fox in there. I mean, Fox is in the conversation.
Well,
he is not a likely at all. But if we
have that, we can't even
next?
yeah. So pretty much, say we take Dame out because Dame was at the bottom of that for us, right? So technically, this like tier where we have one person to pick from is Damian Lillard,
yep,
De'Aaron Fox, Brandon Ingram, Lauri Markkanen, and Jaren Jackson Jr. And Dame feels like the obvious one there, to be honest.
Man, I guess I am a Lauri guy. I think that Dame and Lauri are definitely the 1-2 there. I just really think that it is, again, it's very dependent on how Utah finishes out the first half of the season, but I think that it'd be tough to deny a team that was supposed to be bottom of the league. The fact that they're 2 games above 500 right now is in large part due to Lauri Markkanen in the turnaround that he's had this year. I think I could see Lauri possibly getting the nod over Dame. I don't know
could
if he
see it.
deserves it. Again, I'm very impressed with Portland. Was in a similar situation where last year they were terrible. Dame was out for the entire year, and then you come in this year, kind of confused expectations. Not sure if they're gonna, just be right back to the Portland that was in the Western Conference Finals a few years ago. And they're not to that tier yet. But the fact that they're in this playoff race as well, I think that Damian Lillard. It would be weird if Damian Lillard doesn't make it, and if Portland's ahead of Utah in the standings, and Lauri Markkanen makes it over Dame, it's just a little strange. So
Right.
I don't know.
So the squads we got then are LeBron in for the front court.
Yep.
LeBron James, Zion Williamson, Anthony Davis, Nikola Jokic, and then Domantas Sabonis and Paul George. For the backcourt, we got Steph Curry, Luka Doncic, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Devin Booker, Ja Morant, and then there is one spot left for any of Damian Lillard, De'Aaron Fox, Lauri Markkanen, Brandon Ingram, Jaren Jackson Jr., Jeremy Grant. But I will say, Steph Curry could be
out.
somebody
Right.
that
There's
gets replaced.
injury replacements. Absolutely.
Anthony Davis could be somebody that gets replaced.
Mm-hmm.
Like, so anybody could go down prior to that. And that is where De'Aaron could sneak in.
Mm-hmm.
Because I don't think that De'Aaron's favored in that group. But if the Kings roll off a lot of wins right now, and they have a somewhat favorable schedule,
they do have a very easy January.
Then maybe that does it, right? But I feel like Domas and De'Aaron are comparable skill levels. Actually, don't really like comparing it that much, but I feel like they're in the same sort of stratosphere
Here. Right.
Yeah. But it's just the difference between front court and back court. The difference is how many spots there are. There's there's 6 front court spots. There's 4 backcourt spots, and then 2 whatever reserves. Like, we have 5 guys in our backcourt that we're like, these guys are for sure making it. And there's only 4 spots. Like, we're taking up one of the reserves because this is like, no, this guy's making it. But I think that if there is injury replacements, which there always is, that's how Domas made maybe both of his all-star teams, at least one of them previously, was through that. So I think that De'Aaron will have a chance. I would be surprised if Domas doesn't make it. I'm certainly not comfortable calling him a lock, but I would be surprised if he didn't make it. And I think De'Aaron's got a shot. I think De'Aaron's got like a 30% chance type of thing. Like, I think he's in that conversation. It's just tough, man. And that's no slight on him. It's just some of these guys are crazy.
Yeah, I think I feel the same way about Domas, where it's like I'm not willing to say like, I would be shocked if he doesn't make it, because I do feel like the narrative is starting to change around who should be the more likely of the superstar or of the all-stars that from the Kings. I think especially with his play at the beginning of the season, De'Aaron was kind of the front runner and the face of the all-star push for the Kings, but as Sabonis has just racked up these incredible games and just been incredibly consistent through the entirety of the season, it's kind of clear that everything runs through Domas, and he's the one, if anybody, should be represented, on top of, like you said, just the logistics of how the numbers work out. It's also funny to me that, like, De'Aaron coming into his NBA career, the major comp for him was Mike Conley. And what was Mike Conley known for up until last year? Being the guy who is an all-star but has never been an all-star, as in the guy who was always like, who's an all-star? Mike Conley. But you do the list, you do the lineup, and it just so happens that he's always the odd man out. So, and Mike Conley, to your point, only made it because of an injury, and he was an injury replacement last year, and that got him the spot. I don't know if was it last year or was it 2 years? It might have been 2 years ago.
I think it was last year.
And so, there's a good chance that we're talking the next 4, 5, 10 years about how De'Aaron Fox deserves to be an all-star, but just keeps missing out because Ja Morant, Devin Booker, Luka Doncic, Scoot Henderson, whatever, Jalen Green, again, like there's just so many good guards out there, Damian Lillard, Anthony Simons, that he just kind of gets lost in the numbers, and it doesn't really speak to how, speak poorly of De'Aaron's play. It's unfortunate that, like you said, it's just kind of a numbers game, and there's just a whole lot less big men doing things that Domas is doing, and there's a whole lot of guards who put up a fuck ton of numbers. Like the fact that SGA, like if SGA were 26, 6 and 6,
Right.
it might be a little more understandable to leave him off when his team is 4 games, 10 games under 500 or whatever, for De'Aaron Fox, who's a couple points less but is on a winning team. But when you have
He's
somebody averaging
fourth in the league in
31
scoring.
points a game, like
Yeah.
you can't deny that. You just can't. So it's not fair to him, but that's just kind of the way the cookie crumbles.
Absolutely where I'm at. I think he's got a chance. I do think a lot of it has to do with how the Kings perform over this next stretch of games. If they can continue to improve, then I think their chances, just De'Aaron's chances, continue to improve with it. So that's where I'm at. I do got to cut this off. I got to get my Christmas shopping done.
Yeah.
And there's only so much time to do that. There was plenty of time before, but that's where I'm at now. So
yeah, I know.
Any final thoughts, my guy?
Yeah, the more and more I'm thinking about it, I think if I had to guess, if I had to put an actual prediction, I think Brandon Ingram takes Paul George's spot as being like an actual bona fide player on the roster, and Paul George probably falls into that. Can he squeeze into one of the wild cards?
And I will say Kawhi's been playing.
He has, yeah.
Kawhi could sneak his way into this conversation.
Got 12 games in so far this year.
He's only missed the back-to-backs since he's come back.
Mm-hmm.
He had a 30-point game the other night. Like he's got that pull just to being Kawhi Leonard,
right.
So I think that he deserves a shout. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. is in this conversation. Like shit, Clay could go crazy. I don't know. Like,
yeah,
there's a handful of guys.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be tough. I would guess that Domas does. De'Aaron has a outside chance that probably is going to be reliant on injury replacements. So that's where we're at.
Wrap it up.
That is all I got. I appreciate y'all hopping in here and tuning in as always. Definitely take a look, for myself and Chris Watkins of Sacktown Sports 1140, Return of the Roar podcast, Kings Weekly, all of the above. And thanks to everybody for listening. Take a look at the Kings Herald to see my work as well as all the other great guys and gals there. Take a look at their Patreon to support local independent Kings coverage. And if you enjoyed this episode of the Kings Pulse podcast, please subscribe, rate, and review, and hear from us again next couple days.